Day 7 of the August 98 10-day retreat in Springwater. A beautiful summer morning, warm, humid, abuzz with insects. Is it really insects? Or just being abuzz? The breathing? The breathing, is it there? Are we here? This moment of warming, cooling, chirping, breathing. The words come out that name, but beyond that there is no need to know. Knowing comes automatically, doesn't it? This urge to know everything, to explain it, describe it, keep it in mind. Feeling some sense of security on account of this knowing what's going on, what we are, what we're all about, where we're going, where we're coming from, whether we're making progress. Let that question come up. Am I getting better at this? Am I getting something out of this? Needing to know. A tremendous urge pulsating through this moment-to-moment living. And such a relief to find out suddenly we don't need to know. Being here is sufficient. Not the words. The words may be soothing, comforting, but it is true, it is so. Being here is what? Enough? Somebody mentioned this morning, the mind has calmed down, there is presence and energy. Seeing what is coming up, even detecting the subtle connections between thought and feeling or emotion, reactiveness, seeing it and letting go of it in the seeing. In this presence, there is no need to go with reactiveness. It's for each one of us to find out for ourselves. But then the question came up for this person. Is that all? Just being here and so forth. Is that all? how to meet a question like that. That question operates on a level other than just being here. It operates on this level we talked about earlier of knowing and thinking and wanting and fearing. An instant of no stirring, and then is that all? A slight discontent with that question, because it is reflective. And as soon as this mind proceeds in reflecting about itself and its life, there creeps in discontent, or a moment of, this is enough, I've got it, I've understood it, and the satisfaction that comes from such evaluations. So, in our meeting, I called this question subversive. Is this all, or is this enough? To not be turned around by these kind of questions which surface from this conditioned mind which is never very far away, even if it seems to be in abeyance for a moment. To see that, what this question is all about, and that it is subversive, sabotaging. There's no need to enter into it, because the moment there's entering into it, this presence is gone, or seemingly gone. If it is dismissed, recognized and dismissed, that thought, that question, then where are we? In a pure state of being, there is no reflection. Is this all? Is this enough? That exists at a different level. And can easily surface. Maybe I've gone too far for a lot of people. One finds oneself mostly in that conditioned level of thinking, reflecting, wanting something better, wanting something more. Is it here? Unfocused with the crickets, the breathing, the effortless being. That was another question that came up with this meeting. Is there a subtle effort to get someplace? One may not think so. But to wonder. A subtle effort to get someplace, get something, get enlightened, or whatever the term may be. Is there? Then there is a me that wants and fears and strains and gets exhausted and disappointed and frustrated or temporarily satisfied. How subtle can the attention be to reveal the subtle movements of wanting, which seem to be ever present and yet are detectable in quiet listening. And no need to go with the movement. even though the habit makes itself felt, the habit of wanting to get someplace else makes itself felt, doesn't it? And can be felt and seen and not gone with. Staying with presence, awareness, beingness. Not the words. Words are of minor importance. They just become important when we talk to each other. But in sitting quietly, there's no need to know. Question came up before the break. In one meeting, whether how was it? How did we come to this? There is just the listening, just the looking, just the tasting, the touching, the feeling. The acuity of the senses. And it was equated with awareness, acquainted with awareness, the acuity of listening or sounding, touching, feeling, sensing. In mentioning that awareness may not be the sensing. Someone said, how do you know? There's never a moment in which there is not some sensation. This is how we are put together. The five senses, the Buddhists say, the six senses, thinking is thrown in with hearing, listening, looking. It's a very good combination to put thinking into the same category. Here in Western thinking sort of towers above the sensuous. So we think. You cannot ask someone to prove something in this work. How can you prove that awareness is more than sensing? I don't know how you can prove it. It's for each one of us to come upon. Not a separate awareness. It's not separate. But it's not the sensing alone. For one thing, the senses, as was mentioned by several people, in this presence are one whole, undivided, unfragmented perceiving. In Zen it said, seeing with your ears and hearing with your eyes. The thought process that knows, oh, this is thinking, oh, this is tasting, is quiet in this wholeness of perceiving. And the moment it is quiet, what seemed separate merges into one indivisible movement, openness, with no one in there who is doing it. No doer, no listener to the sounds of motor and crickets. There's no listener here. There's no listening, there are no crickets, it's just one whole alive, palpitating, whatever. Is that clear? Maybe for short glimpses that there is no listener, there's just what is. No listener, no listening, no stuff that is heard. That's stuff of the mind. What comes to mind at this moment is what we recited in Zen training once daily, at special occasions several times daily. Heart Sutra. And one segment of it says, no eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, no color, sound, smell, taste, touch, or what the mind takes hold of. Always was very confusing. Color, sound, smell, taste, touch, or what the mind takes hold of. That's not so confusing, isn't it? When one begins to see thought taking hold of this and that, naming it, describing it, reacting to it. And instantly removed from the immediacy of no sound, no hearing, no listener. Which doesn't mean being dead. It means fully alive without the habitual thinking, interfering, cutting up, abstracting. And if that happens, as it does, because it's such a strong habit, we live in it most of the time, as that happens, it reveals itself like that sixth sense. That's what's going on with the brain and the body. And is aware without judgment, without needing to push it away or bring it close. Let it be. The thought coming up, is this enough? Is this all? Let it be. See it for what it is. Maybe with a little smile. How one was about to get sucked into habitual modes. Or, if one does get sucked in, we wake up again. And see it in memory and let go of it. Don't fuss over it. The less reacted, the more energy is right here with the crickets. Not crickets, really, but what can I do? I could sit here quiet all hour long. Maybe it would be better. This morning, one of the last questions was, are people responsible? And it sounded like sort of a distancing question, but this person was very into watching himself, observing this real question. Is there a choice not to become angry? That was the example given, picking it up. Is there a choice? Do we have a choice? And some spiritual authorities were quoted, just read down in the basement or heard the tape, who say, yes, we do have a choice to not go with the anger. To stay here. before accepting any spiritual authority, what they say. It may raise a question, but the question is only good for investigating, not for adopting what has been said. That refers to everything that's said here, this morning, or any morning, or evening for that matter. What's going on? We already have this strong idea from our conventional wisdom that we do have free choice, or that some choice is there for us. One clings to that idea because it would be a dreadful thought to imagine that we're unfree, just driven, predestined. With this word, memories of when I was in my late teens, corresponding ad infinitum with a boyfriend who was in the war, very good writer, very thoughtful, philosophically oriented person, and we wrote long letters back and forth whether there is free choice or predestination. And I loved the idea of corresponding with someone with whom I could write about these things very abstractly, of course. And yet there was some yearning for understanding then already. Are we determined by our inheritance, our conditioning, our tastes and training, instincts? Predestination, it brings in another element I want to leave out right now. Just leave it simpler. Is there determination by what has been mentioned? Conditioning, instincts, inheritance, DNA, genes, environment, and so forth. To do what we do, it's all reactive. Or is there some freedom which we put into the words freedom of choice? But to have freedom of choice, as we look at it, are we looking at this together? We're just listening to words, or are you also looking? Maybe not right now, maybe later, but we can look right now. If I say I have freedom to choose, there must be a chooser. Someone who is doing this, choosing. And if the feeling and conviction is, yes, I am the chooser, then find it as it happens, as a choice or seeming choice is being made. Most of the time we don't look. We just react inadvertently, unconsciously or semi-consciously, semi-aware, not fully aware most of the time. It's particularly in a retreat that there's the possibility to watch. Maybe if you wonder, should I take a walk, or should I lie down to sleep, or should I get a glass of water, or sit? Or none of these. Go outside, lie down. What goes on in this mind? These are already all thoughts, sort of like smorgasbording possibilities in the mind. I could do this, I could do that. Sort of tasting it out a little bit. How would that feel? How would that feel? And how has it felt yesterday when I did it or when I didn't do it? And then evaluations is what is best for me. It may not all be put so meticulously as it's being done here right now, but it can go very fast, very rapidly. But there are thoughts and scenarios imagined, how it would be to do this and to do that. And that wouldn't be so good, this would be better. Would it really be better? And then very often, really not knowing how or why, we find ourselves on a walk or back in here or with a glass of water. Maybe the preceding thought was, I'll go and sit, or I'll go for a walk. And the amazing discovery is that thoughts lead to action. We think, I am acting, I am doing that, but what is this I? We're so sloppy about it. We think I do, we think I choose. But what is this I, supposedly behind everything that goes on with me? Do we want to find out? Is that of interest? To really track it down, as it were, with attention, with watching it. We say, I chose to walk, I chose to sit. But how did it come about? It's not easy to watch, but it's very simple. It doesn't have the complication of ideas, I have free choice or I don't have free choice. These complications are eliminated when I realize, or it's realized, that there needs to be some careful, close observation. And when the mind is filled with umpteen other things, that observation is very blurred or impossible. And it really needs to be some empty space for this question to unfold. Do I choose, or am I a chooser or a doer? Or what is really going on as I want to get up or sit down? I recently read in a book about the brain that 90% of what is going on with us human beings, as far as the brain is concerned, is unconscious. Only 10% is conscious. That was a shocking item. Shocking if one thinks, or would like to think, that we are in charge. We know everything that's going on, or most everything, and choose over this and that. When a subject in a testing situation reports, now I'm intending, right now I'm intending, the subject was asked, tell us when you feel the intention. The brain had been busy long before then. All kinds of wave action, unbeknownst to the subject. And it is this unconscious motivation or motivating forces and thoughts and impulses that can become more transparent with this work if there's a genuine interest in finding out what we are this moment. With interest comes energy, and with energy comes more transparency of the drives and resistances that move us and block us. See, the language is so dualistic. Please forgive, I can't do any better. Well, I could try. The forces that are driving and blocking. There is no subject there. And by talking this way, we constantly reinforce it. But if the talking is secondary and the looking is primary, then a subject need not be created from this kind of talking. Did you see what I mean? If the presence is here, the looking, the awareing, then even though the language is dualistic, it need not disturb this non-dual here-ness, lookingness. So it's not that dangerous, but it's quite dangerous. The way we talk and reinforce each other in our beliefs that I'm I and you are you and we are what? At best we're friends. What does it mean to be friends? The idea of it, it's an energizing idea. I have a good friend. You're my good friend. I love you. That idea and thought and verbalization has an effect on this body-mind. In thinking you are my friend and I'm your friend, are we in that thought realm? I'm not saying it's bad. I'm investigating it. In the thought realm, me the person and you the person, two persons friends with each other, is that how we feel? Or is the heart so open, so full, that there is no feeling of meanness and you-ness? Looking, talking, walking, silenting or talking together, not insisting on my ways, and not in that dwelling place of fortification. Because with a good friend we may be a little bit less fortified until maybe they say something critical of us or comparing, and then fortifying, resisting or attacking. Maybe very gently, friendly-like. So there's another thing to watch. In being together, is there something more than this enclosing personal consciousness? Something more in the back of it, embracing the whole. So, I'm off of our people responsible. When we ask a question like this, to go deeper for ourselves or with each other, what do we mean by being responsible? That we, as we are organized in societies, have to bear the consequences of our actions. Every society, there's probably no known group of human beings that doesn't have some kind of code of behavior, which is inculcated into the young and abided by, except for the transgressions, by the adults. And if not abided by, if there is transgression, then there is punishment, ostracism, whatever the punishment is that is established, or at least a hearing. Why did you do what you did? So, is that what we mean by saying, I have to be responsible because if I'm not, I'll have to eat the soup that I've cooked? Is that what we mean? We can talk about it, we can go into it. Hold each other accountable, is another way of putting it. Holding each other accountable for what we're doing. There's nothing wrong with, not only nothing wrong, it's very helpful for intelligent living to understand very carefully from observation as we go the consequences of our actions. To understand them, to aware them, to remember them. We don't remember, we put our foot into it every time. And of course this was the question of this person. Is it responsible not to become angry? Because becoming angry is irresponsible, because the consequences have been observed hurting people, hurting the life of the group, and so forth. Regretting it, feeling guilty about it, these are also consequences. Constantly needing to ask for, apologize, to ask for forgiveness. So, for this person, the question, very strong. Is it possible not to go with anger? Calling that responsible action. Whenever the question comes up about responsibility, don't we have responsibility, or do we have responsibility? I like to look at this word in a little bit different way, not that it sounds so moralistic, forbidding, threatening, but responsibility meaning being responsive. How responsive can we be as anger arises? And responsive meaning not just responsive from training. That is automatic behavior. Training oneself to count to 10 if an angry feeling arises, or bite one's tongue, leave the room, withdraw. I'm not saying these are bad ways if one needs to do that, but responsive, the way we were talking this morning, means coming out of something other than conditioned training with its fear of punishment. Is it possible, you and me, people who get irritated, maybe angry, maybe enraged, to remain present? That's a tall question and a deep question. Is it possible, humanly possible, to remain present as irritation, rage, or anger arise, make themselves felt, mobilizing this body-mind? Who's going to answer this question? Maybe to the degree that we're already involved in this level of conditioned reaction, blaming and fretting, suffering out of our often conditioned, daily, tumultuous living. What is there to remain with? The question posed was, is it possible to remain present as anger arises, makes itself felt? Maybe already the spark has already gone over to the glands and organs and muscles. The thought from about what, the annoying thought or the triggering thought. You can put it in the description. So, in our daily tumultuous living, is there anything to remain with? Here right now, being present, we're all listening, we're looking. There's something to remain with, namely this presence. Very often, asking someone who is given to angry eruptions in a meeting when there is really presence, we can ask ourselves and each other, could I get angry right now over anything or afraid of anything? Of course, it's still at that moment a theoretical question. It's a memory thing, bringing something up in memory, testing it out that way. And no sparks are flying. The presence is solid. Is it? This moment? Can you imagine something that sets you off normally into fear or anger? Think about it right now. And it's just like the chirping of cicadas, isn't it? But in our non-meditative presence, sometimes a thought sets off this body-mind. Doesn't have to be an actual situation, just remembering how these people are, should be and are not. Just that thought can trigger eruption of emotions, internal juices, reinforcing the mental scenario to which the body is responding. So, the logical question would be, wouldn't it, could some presence and then say total presence, some presence permeate our daily life? Actually, it does. We said the other day something that is so true. It's not that here and there a little bit of awareness, and most of the time it's just thought material and reactive stuff, fear and desiring. It's the other way around. It all tumbles around in awareness and presence. But we don't see it, we don't recognize it that way a good deal of the time. So how to touch in our daily lives this amazing ground of impersonal, all-embracing awareness, which is touchable at any moment. If you say, prove it to me, I can't. All I can say, every time it's there, it's there. That's a fine proof. It's always there when it's there. It's never been not present, except it's overlaid by the smog of the way we live, not through any fault of our own, but through ignorance. Ignorance of the ways of the brain and body, spinning out webs, sticky webs. In which there is stuckness. So, coming back once more, is it possible? Here, we're here right now in retreat. Our daily life comes later, although this is sometimes not so removed from daily life. We get angry too in retreat, do we? People tell me that. Is it possible to see all the turmoil happening and yet not go with it? Not because there is a wise chooser, but because there is presence, which needs nothing. It needs no release. It needs no satisfaction. It needs no gratification. It can just watch the need for that and not go with it. Because being here, undivided, unfragmented, is totally sufficient. It's not a judgment, it's not a choice, it is so. Maybe easy right now, but very difficult in our entangled daily lives, in which finding quiet time seems to move to the way back burner. Because everything seems so much more important. It draws us magnetically. Involvements. Trying to grasp for something more. We will end here for today.